A couple of weeks ago, Chels and I spent a week basking in the sunshine and swimming with sharks on a five-star resort in the Maldives. It was literally an island paradise. And while I was there, relaxing, taking a break from the gym, I noticed a few things that kind of made the experience so special and that really maximized the time that we had there from a business perspective. And these are all things that you can use in your academy to create a crazy experience for your students and potentially even grow your school as well. But before we dive into the insights that I gained, I want to talk about why it's important. And it really comes down to one thing: experience. If you can create an incredible experience for your students and people who are trying classes, the chance that they're going to stay with you a long period of time and the chance that they're going to join dramatically increases. Let's give you an example. So let's say that you've got two jiu-jitsu schools. They're relatively similar priced, timetables relatively similar, and they're relatively similar location to you. Which school are you going to choose? It's probably the one that you get the better experience at. So the instructor's friendly and welcoming. They've got the type of training that you want to have. It's clean. Those things really matter to people and matter to your overall experience with it in an academy. And it's kind of often overlooked by a lot of schools. To give you a more real example from my gym, there's a couple of other jiu-jitsu schools in Cambridge. And we regularly get people who come in and try a class, and we'll tell them the price, and we're a lot more expensive than they are. So what they'll do is like, oh, it's a bit more expensive than I thought. These other schools charge this price. We go to them, okay, no problem, go try out those classes. More often than not, the person goes, tries that class, and then comes back to us. And it's got nothing to do with the price. It's because the experience they get when they come in. They have an incredible time the moment they step through the doors. Everybody's super welcoming. It's light and bright. It's clean. They get great training. We have abundance of classes. That really, really matters to people. And if you can create that experience, you're going to get a lot of loyalty and it's going to be much harder for people to go to other schools. So let's talk about the insights I got and some of the things that you can take away from my trip to the Maldives, some of the things that I'm going to be really implementing in my school as well. The first one that I want to talk about is that maintaining paradise is an ongoing project. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, to give you an example, every morning that we stepped out of our beach villa, the paths were pristine. It's like no one had ever walked on them before. You could see your footprints in the sand. And I know, because we kind of saw people doing this late at night, that they were going around and literally like cleaning all the leaves away. They were raking the sand, and so that it looked like that island paradise every time that you stepped out the door. And they were doing this round the clock in different ways and different locations. For example, like all the paths are obviously cut through trees, through like palm trees and stuff like that. And you would see them out there trimming and making sure that everything's kind of in the right place so that the guests could kind of live in this island paradise experience. And the way that they actually went about doing this was really, really unintrusive as well. Obviously, if you're, a five-star resort and you're on an island, you kind of have to do it all of the time. You're open all the time, right? So there's going to be periods where you have to do maintenance. What they did is, I'll give you an example again. I saw them chopping down coconuts. Obviously, they don't really want a coconut falling on a guest. Probably bad for their for their reputation. So what they would do is they would like tape off an area. They would have two guys who were like running up the coconut trees, chopping them down and then dropping them down. But what happened when you walked past them, they didn't continue doing that. They stopped, they said good morning to you, said hello. They were happy to have a chat to you about like what they were doing. You could even sneak away with a coconut if you asked them really nicely. And so it just became kind of part of like island life. They were really unobtrusive and it didn't take away from the experience. In fact, it kind of enhanced it because you got to see some of what they were doing. And this was across the island and everything they were doing. It was continuous, ongoing maintenance. And what a lot of schools do is they kind of take the opposite approach. They have like one big spring clean or 1 week where they shut down to touch up all the paint or anything like that. That's fine, but it's a lot of work. And if you do it continually, your academy is going to look better for longer. To bring this back to like the jiu-jitsu world, I spent a lot of time training at AOJ. I got to see the inner workings. I was coaching there. I was helping out in classes. When they first opened, they were painting that space every single month. They actually dropped it down to like I think it was either 4 or 6 months, something like that, but it was regularly painted. To the point that the first time I went was like 2012. I think the last time I was there was like 2017. It looked almost identical. That is absolutely crazy for a gym that has hundreds of students, really, really heavy wear, and is basically pure white. They did so much to keep that space like that because they wanted that wow factor whenever somebody walks in. And that's what we want for our gym as well. We're regularly going around and touching up little things, changing little things, making improvements so that everybody who steps through the door has this amazing experience. And it's the same with the island that we're at as well. So point number 2 is that they gave people more opportunities to spend money. So going to the Maldives, it's kind of expensive. You're on a private island, it's an all-inclusive resort and whatnot. It's obviously quite a long flight from the UK as well. But even while we were there, we ended up spending like another $2,000 on stuff because we wanted to have that experience. And part of it was planned, like I learned to dive while I was out there. But there were other things that cropped up, other opportunities that we decided to jump on. One of them, for example, was they had this night where they were having like cocktails out of coconuts. And I was like, we've got to do this. Like, how often are you going to have a cocktail out of a coconut? Let's go for this. And so you ended up buying a little bit extra. Another thing they did was like whale shark diving. You go snorkel with whale sharks. Like, who doesn't want to swim with a whale shark? It's an amazing experience. And so they were giving you lots of little opportunities to essentially spend more money with them. Now, there were certain things that they did that worked incredibly well and other things that not so much. For example, they had like the coconut thing. I saw so many people with those coconut drinks because it's very congruent with what they're doing. They're on an island, they want to be drinking out of a coconut. Another night they had like, I think, a whiskey night, and I saw virtually no one taking part in that because it's not really congruent with what they're doing. It doesn't mean no one took a part of it, but it's just there wasn't the same uptake from the people at the resort. So the more congruent you can be with the activities that you're doing, the things that you're providing for your students, the more likely they are to partake in it. So you want to be thinking within your gym, what can I do that is going to increase my revenue? Because at the end of the day, your cash flow is super important. It makes a big difference to the health of your business. So things like seminars, like creating merchandise, t-shirts, events, you can offer those to your students and they will spend more money with you. For example, in our gym right now, I am doing a masterclass on Friday. I think we've got 30 students on that. We have a following seminar, which is a very short notice one with Adele Fornerino on Wednesday next week. We have continuous things that are going on in our school that give our students a better quality of service, give them a better experience within the gym, but also generate us revenue as well. So it's a really important thing that you can do. And it's very optional as well. Like, we don't force people to do these things. We offer it in a way that they want to participate in it and they want to, get what we're offering essentially. Point number 3, staff training is paramount and it is continuous. Often again, when instructors start getting people into their school, like, assistant coaches or someone to help out the front desk or whatever, you just kind of throw them in the deep end. Very little training, very little understanding of what they actually want out of the class. And this ends up causing headaches because that person has to fill the vacuum. So what was happening at the resort is there were like consistent, regular staff meetings all of the time. Like, I'm talking like 2-3 times a day. Like, the service crews or like the staff would get together, talk about what they were doing, identify any issues, all that kind of stuff. It was like consistently there all of the time, which again meant that everybody was singing from the same sheet. The experience for the guest was incredible because they always got what was expected for them to happen. And the other thing that I saw is if there was a problem, it was dealt with right away. So to give you an example, like, these places, they'll have specific layouts that they're trying to hit. It's to do with like capacity, it's to do with the experience of the guests, all those kind of things. And I saw someone like setting up their like seating area in the wrong way. And he was immediately corrected and made to put it in the correct orientation, and it was explained why to him this was important. Now you might think that's super anal, like I'm not going to do that. But if you take it from the guest's experience, it mattered to the guests. It mattered to the experience that they were trying to create, and ultimately they're trying to protect that. And it's the same with your gym, right? Let's say that you want to create this really inclusive environment, that everybody feels welcome, and then you get one person who's just not following the rules. They're being crazy. They're in a beginner's class and they're treating it like the finals of worlds or whatever. Like, you need to pull that person in and rein them in. Or you get an instructor who's, not signing everybody into class. You need to change that, and you need to educate them on why it's important and what it means to your gym. Okay, and that's very simple to do. And if, again, you're continually chipping away at this, it makes life easier. To give you a real world example, I've just had this with one of the guys in the bullpen. Like, he's at the point that he started to get more and more staff involved, and they weren't initially following the procedures that he wanted. For about 2 weeks, he just got on them all the time. He was like, this is why we've got to do this. This is super important. This for our health and safety. It's to make sure that everybody has a membership. It's to make sure, like, we need to know who's here so we can grade them properly. All of those kind of things, which are important. It took a little bit of, continuous, like, reinforcing of this idea. But now it's the point that he had a guy turn up to a class the other day that hadn't booked in and didn't have an active membership. He wasn't in the gym at the time. And what happened was that the instructor who was teaching the class, he got that guy, brought him to the side and was like, hey, you haven't got an active membership. We need to make sure this is happening because otherwise you can't train. He then immediately got the guy signed up. That, for the school owner, that means that he's generated a new member. It means that their health and safety policies are correctly followed, so they're not going against any of their insurance stuff. It's really important, and it also demonstrates to the other students around that they have to have this because they're being checked up on. They can't just come in and squirrel away lessons if they've not paid their membership. They're going to be counted for. And again, that helps with the growth of your gym, and it avoids any problems later down the line. So those things, again, is really important. That staff training, how do you want your classes delivered? What procedures do you want your instructors to follow is crucial, and it just needs to be done all the time before it's been 3 months and you've got this massive headache to solve. Okay, and I understand that because it can be stressful dealing with people. You kind of want to push off the awkward conversations, but it's usually so much easier if you do it straight away. Point number 4. The systems that they had in place were so smooth. To give you an example, right, when you come into an airport, it can be super chaotic, right? Everybody's everywhere, you don't know where you got to go, it's all foreign, it's all different, you don't know where you're supposed to get to. We were supposed to get on a seaplane to go to a tiny island in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Like, how do you go about doing that? Well, really simply, what they did is you got handed off every stage of the journey. So we walked off our flight and there's a little dude there with a sign that said Barlow. And I was like, cool, that's me. And then he walked us to the terminal to get the seaplane. They checked us in, and then they walked us to where we got the bus to go to the seaplane terminal. Then they were there, and then they called out our name, and it was like a regular flight. When we got off, we went to an orientation in the island where they sat us down, they talked us through, different parts of what they were doing, yada, yada, yada. And it was like very seamless. All our bags got transferred all the way through the thing, so we didn't have to worry about that. And it was all explained to us as it was happening. It was an incredible experience. It was wicked. And it should be the same when people come into your academy. Like, for example, you've got a new student coming in, they're going to feel that. When they walk into your space, they're not going to know where anything is. They're not going to know what to do or who to talk to. You need to make that process really seamless where they have that point of contact that gets passed on to somebody else. What's the process that they follow so they have this wicked experience and they don't have any of that stress of not knowing what's expected to them, not knowing what's going to come next. If you change that, it can make life so much easier. And it's the same for the other stuff as well, like, gradings, for example. What's your process of how you grade people? And how have you made it clear to your members? Because the better you can do that, the easier it's going to be for everybody. So if you can create these really smooth systems, they can make a big difference to your school. The point number 5 is that they were always asking for reviews and asking if we were going to return as well. So the Maldives is a massive, most of their economy comes from tourism, right? It's basically how they're set up. They want you to come back. They want you to have this amazing experience. To do that, they want to ask you, like, did you have a great time? Yeah, it was amazing. Well, we'll see you next year. That's called a presumptive close. And it's like, oh yeah, I'd love to come back next year. Let's do that. And it puts that kind of seed in your mind that you want to come back next year. You had an amazing time, you want to come back. And then also by getting people to do continuous reviews, so we got like asked when we did I told you I did the diving thing. When I did the diving thing, I was asked for a review by the dive school. I was also, when we left, there was like a thing, it was just QR codes, like scan this, help us with a review on TripAdvisor if you had a nice time, write down whatever you want. Same thing. Then you end up with like multiple reviews of just stacks of people saying this is an amazing resort, I had an incredible time, particularly at that moment where you're really super like excited by the experience, right? If you leave it 2-3 weeks, that kind of motivation is going to drop off. Okay, people won't be as excited as while they're there. They've just been sunning themselves on, drinking coconut drinks and swimming with whale sharks for a week. They're going to want to rave about that experience to whoever will listen. So asking for reviews is a continuous thing, and it can just be as simple as having that QR code. So when you go on to check out the resort, they've got like 7,000 reviews on TripAdvisor, all at like, the majority of them at like 5 stars and stuff. That matters. That gives them authority. It means that people who are searching for that or looking for a resort will be like, wow, these guys have so many reviews and they're all so positive and they had an amazing experience. I'm going to go to that place. That's what I do. And that's what people do when they're searching out your academy as well. They look at like, does this person have a lot of reviews? Like, what are the reviews saying? Do they have a good experience when they're going there? So if you can promote that, it matters. And then when you ask people to return, for you guys, that means it's like will I see you in the next class? Yeah, I'm going to be here in the next class. Brilliant. That means that they're going to be using their membership. They're going to be getting the benefits from training with you. And again, it can make a really big difference. So that's a habit that you want to get into all of the time. Can you drop us a review? Making it easy for people to do it through things like QR codes. And also, when will I see you next? Did you enjoy the session? Like those kind of things, great opportunities to get reviews. Okay, and to also increase that consistency of training. Okay, point number 6, and this is my final point. The final one was tender care. And what do I mean by this? One of the big things, or one of the big fears that people have when they're traveling to foreign places is like, stuff being stolen from them. Like, we're essentially in a resort, not quite an open door policy, but there's a lot of opportunities that people could walk into your room and take stuff. You always hear about cleaners like, stealing money and doing all of this kind of stuff. It's something that is regularly, you hear about in the news, right? One of the things that I noticed while like they were cleaning our room, so they'd come in like in the morning, in the evening, they'd replace towels, they'd tidy up your bed if you needed that kind of stuff to do. So it was always, again, like, every day you're sleeping in fresh linen. It was kind of incredible if you wanted it. Like, often we would just leave our towels on the floor because we were also kind of environmentally conscious, and they did think about that too. But what happened is like, I would just we were filming stuff on a GoPro, so I would leave my laptop in various different places, just because I was kind of not using it. What they did is they made up the room, did all that kind of stuff, and they left anything important very visibly on your bed. So like my laptop, like at one point my watch was out, and it was all kind of neatly stacked in a pile so that you could see instantly that it was there, no one had taken it, and you didn't have to worry about that anymore. That like kind of tiny touch, again, dissuades people's fear. And what can you do? You can kind of take that same process within your school as well. What are the tiny touch points that I can do that really show that I care about the person? To give you an example, one of the things that we do before anybody comes and tries a class, we send them a tour of the academy. It kind of relates back to that kind of systems thing that I talked about earlier. But what it does is it starts to dispel the fear. We've taken this time to get a video and we just show them around so that when they come in, they feel comfortable with what's happening. We get to learn people's names. Like, we'll talk to them about their jobs, all kinds of different things. So we're taking an interest in them. That kind of level of tender care can be crucial, and it will just set you apart from other people, from other schools who don't do it. How many times have you heard about instructors? I just don't know their names. No, my instructor doesn't even know my name, I don't think. It's a common thing. If you learn everybody's name, you create this environment where it's kind of, you're trying to support them. You're thinking about their fears, their anxieties, all kinds of different stuff. Educating them on and showing that you care, it can make a massive difference to your attention. Okay, so That's my sixth point. Hopefully you found this video quite useful, quite informative. It gave you a bunch of different ideas about stuff that you can put into your academy. Like, we already do a lot of this stuff, but we're going to start introducing some of these ideas, and it reinforces that I need to be doing these things as well. You know, like, it's been a crazy year for us. I've not been as hot on the maintenance of the gym. I know I need to get back to doing that. So then I need to create a system where I can do that effectively, either by me doing it or somebody else doing it, and put that into place so that those people, when they first come into the gym, and my current students as well, which are just as important, have this incredible experience. So anyway, hopefully that all helps you out and gives you some ideas, gives you some ways that you can kind of grow your school. If you need any more help, hit me up, Tom at Escapology BJJ. You can join Escapology Online, get our instructors member. There's tons of resources with this. Or if you want my private help, we have the bullpen, which is where I'll help you privately grow your school. Any questions? Let me know. Os.